Sam didn't notice when it started. He was sitting on his couch one evening, one sock off, dinner getting cold on the table, and his phone was glowing in his hand like a tiny fireplace. He told himself he was just checking one thing, one message, one clip, one scroll. Then he looked up and felt that weird, hollow panic. But because nothing happened, no memory, no satisfaction, just the sense that his brain had been lightly sandblasted. And that's when the thought hit him. The thought a lot of adults feel but rarely say out loud. What does a kid's brain feel like? Because kids aren't just using phones, they're growing up inside them. This is The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. And the promise of this book is urgent but clear. You're going to understand why teen mental health started collapsing in the early 2010s, why it hit girls hardest, why boys are struggling in a different way, and how a few simple shared changes could actually reverse the trend. We're going to walk through every major part and lesson, so by the end you'll have the full picture. Not a few quotes, not a shallow blame game. The actual map Haidt is trying to hand to parents, schools, and society. Now, before we touch a single recommendation, Haidt wants you to see the shape of the problem. Because almost everyone hears this topic and instantly picks a side. Some people say it's all the phone, some people say it's all the parenting, some people say it's the pandemic. Some people say teens have always been fragile. But Haidt's argument is more specific than that, which is why it lands. He starts with a wave, not a gradual shift, a surge. In the early 2010s, rates of anxiety, item depression, and self-harm rose sharply among adolescents. The timing matters, the pattern matters, and the differences between girls and boys matter too. Haidt's core claim is that childhood itself got rewired. It shifted from a play-based childhood, built on physical independence and face-to-face social learning, into a phone-based childhood, built on constant connection, constant comparison, and constant interruption. And here's the painful twist. Adults made two opposite mistakes at the same time, where they actually need freedom, risk, and practice, where their brains are vulnerable and the incentives of the platforms are not aligned with their well-being. Then handing them a jet engine and saying, have fun. But to feel the force of that, you have to remember what childhood is supposed to do. Childhood isn't a waiting room. It's training. Kids are designed to learn through embodied experience. They learn by moving, by falling, by negotiating, by testing boundaries, by getting bored and inventing something, by playing games where the rules are argued about and enforced by other kids. It looks messy to adults. But that mess is how the brain wires up competence. It's how kids build a kind of confidence that doesn't come from praise. It comes from proof. And Haidt argues that when you remove that training, kids don't become safer. They become more anxious. Because anxiety isn't just fear. And you don't have evidence you can handle it. That's why the decline of play matters so much. Independent time started shrinking for years in many places. More supervision, more structured activities, less roaming, less unsupervised time with peers, more adult-managed life. Parents didn't suddenly get cruel, they got scared. Fear of kidnappers, fear of traffic, fear of lawsuits, fear of judgment, fear of being the one parent who seems careless. And when fear becomes the default, you stop noticing the trait, and you lose long-term resilience. Sam saw a version of this with his nephew. His sister asked him to watch the kid for an afternoon. Late elementary school, smart, funny, totally comfortable talking to adults. Sam said, "Hey, let's go outside. There's a small park right across the street." The kid hesitated like Sam just asked him to cross a highway alone at midnight. Then he asked, "Are we allowed?" Allowed by who? Sam didn't mean it as a lecture, he was genuinely confused. But the question landed like a brick because the kid wasn't being dramatic. He was being trained. His life had been organized around supervision so completely that unsupervised outdoor time felt abnormal. So Sam tried a tiny experiment. They walked to the park together. Sam sat on a bench. And he said, "You can play. You don't need to check in every minute. I'm right here." At first, the kid played like he was being watched, staying close, looking back. Then something shifted. He started running, not jogging, running like his body was remembering an older instruction. And Sam watched his shoulders drop, his face open, his whole nervous system soften. That's the kind of real-world independence Haidt argues we've been starving kids of. Not because it's cute, because it's how the nervous system learns calm. Now here's the second half of the double mistake. They were gaining extreme independence online. Not the healthy kind, the kind where a child can access adult content, adult social dynamics, algorithmic manipulation, endless social comparison, and strangers, all while sitting in their bedroom. Haidt says it changes the social physics of childhood. In the real world, relationships are embodied, synchronous, usually one-to-one or one-to-several, and they happen in communities that are hard to exit. That matters because when you can't easily escape your community, you learn to repair. You learn to tolerate awkwardness. You learn to regulate yourself. Online, relationships are often disembodied, asynchronous, one-to-many, and easy to leave. Block, ghost, replace. So kids learn disposal instead of repair. They learn performance instead of presence. And the richest people are the loudest. But Haidt doesn't stop at phones are different. He says the phone-based childhood produces 4 foundational harms, like pillars holding up the whole structure: sleep deprivation, social deprivation, attention fragmentation, and addiction. Those 4 aren't random. They map directly onto development. First, sleep. Teen brains need sleep like lungs need oxygen. Sleep is emotional regulation, memory consolidation, mental repair, hormonal balance. Phones steal it. Not only because kids stay up late scrolling, but because the phone creates a background state of alertness, notifications, group chats, fear of missing something, the pressure to reply fast. Even when the phone is down, the brain is on duty. It's like trying to fall asleep in a room where someone might shout your name at any moment. And when sleep drops, anxiety rises, irritability rises, impulse control drops. Small problems feel huge. Second, social deprivation. This one sounds strange because kids on phones look social. They're texting, sharing, reacting. But Haidt argues a lot of this is not the kind of social nutrition the brain evolved to need. It's like eating candy and calling it dinner. Real social development is built on face-to-face time, on reading micro-expressions, on turn-taking, on dealing with silence, on seeing the consequences of your words immediately, on repairing mistakes. Digital interaction can be useful, sure, but when it replaces embodied interaction, kids lose practice in the skills that keep them stable. Third, attention fragmentation. A child's ability to focus is a muscle. It grows through sustained play, boredom, long conversations, and deep work. Phones train the opposite. Quick hits, constant switching, endless novelty. When attention is constantly pulled, it's not just distraction. It becomes harder to tolerate your own mind. That's why some kids feel restless even when nothing is happening. Their brain is waiting for the next ping, like a dog waiting for a treat. Fourth, addiction. Not in a cartoonish sense, but in the behavioral sense. Compulsive use, loss of control, continued use despite negative outcomes, irritability or anxiety when the device is removed. And remember, we're talking about developing brains, especially during puberty when social sensitivity spikes and identity feels fragile. Which brings Haidt to a key idea. The transition into adulthood is getting blocked. In a healthy world, puberty comes with more independence, more responsibility, and more real-world proof. A teen learns, I can handle risk, I can contribute, I can manage myself. But when puberty happens in a world where teens are physically restricted and digitally flooded, the transition gets weird. They're treated like fragile children in the real world, and like full adults in the virtual world. So they absorb adult stress without adult competence. That's like giving someone the weight of a job without teaching them how to work. Sam saw what that looks like through a coworker named Ryan. Ryan's younger brother was in high school, and one day Ryan showed Sam a message thread. Overnight, the group chat had turned into chaos, screenshots, rumors, piling on. The kind of social explosion that would have been rare in the old world because it would have required physical coordination. Now it happened while everyone was in bed. Ryan said his brother woke up to hundreds of messages about him. He wasn't even awake when it started, but his reputation was being shaped without him. Sam felt his stomach tighten because he recognized what makes it so damaging. In the real world, cruelty has limits. The day ends. People go home. The scene resets. Online, it follows you into your room. It can run all night. It can spread to people you've never met, and it can be stored forever. Now here's the part that explains the data pattern. Haidt argues the harms are not evenly distributed between girls and boys. They're different. For girls, he puts a spotlight on social media. Early adolescence is when peer evaluation feels intense. Identity is forming, belonging matters, and platforms turn that sensitivity into a constant scoreboard. You're not just living your life, you're curating it. You're watching other people's highlight reels. You're measuring your worth in likes, comments, streaks, and views. And because platforms are optimized for engagement, they push content that triggers emotion, envy, outrage, desire, fear, and still feel like she's in a crowded cafeteria where everyone is judging her. That is not a normal developmental environment. Add appearance-based comparison, and it gets worse. Filters, perfect bodies, idealized lifestyles. Even if a teen knows it's curated, the nervous system still reacts. It's automatic. Like standing next to a mirror that's designed to make you feel ugly. For boys, Haidt argues the route is often different. Many boys are pulled into screen worlds that can replace physical play, competition, and real-world skill building. Some get absorbed into gaming, some into endless video content, some into online subcultures that reshape identity. And because many boys develop through doing, building, roughhousing, testing themselves, a screen-heavy childhood can block the experiences that help them become confident adults. So instead of anxiety showing up the same way, you may see disengagement, isolation, numbness, failure to launch. Not because they're lazy, because they've been offered a supernormal substitute for real life. Why struggle to build social skills when a game gives instant status? Why risk rejection when a screen gives constant stimulation? Why practice hard skills when entertainment is endless? It looks like comfort, but it often feels like stuck. And if you think this is only about teens, Haidt's point is even scarier. The phone is training adults too. Sam realized that when his own stress response became automatic. If his day was hard, he didn't unwind with something that restored him. He escaped. He opened his phone and let it carry him away, like stepping onto a conveyor belt. The more he did it, the less he wanted anything else. Gym felt hard. Calling a friend felt like effort. Reading felt slow. Even watching a movie felt too long unless he could multitask. So he tried a rule that sounded small. 1 phone-free hour every night. Not a dramatic detox, just 1 hour. At first it was uncomfortable. He kept reaching for it like a phantom limb. Then he noticed the deeper truth. His mind had been trained to avoid silence. And when silence arrived, anxiety arrived. But because his nervous system had forgotten how to settle without stimulation. After a couple weeks, he started falling asleep earlier. Not perfectly, just earlier. His thoughts got longer again. And one night, he read a book for a while without checking anything. He didn't feel heroic. He felt normal. That's the warning here. This isn't only about screen time. It's about humans losing a basic capacity. The ability to be present without needing a feed. So what do? This is where a lot of people freeze because even if you agree with the problem, it feels impossible to fix. Every kid has a phone. Every friend group depends on it. If you delay it, your child might feel left out. Haidt names that trap a collective action problem, but individuals acting alone get punished. It's like trying to sit down in a stadium where everyone else is standing. If you sit, you can't see, so you stand too. And now everyone stands, and nobody is better off. Or like trying to hold back a river with a bucket. One person can't, but a wall built together changes the flow. That's why Haidt is aiming for norms, not perfect parents. Shared expectations that make it easier for families to choose what's healthy without becoming isolated. He proposes 4 big shifts that act like a foundation. No smartphones before high school, no social media before 16, phone-free schools, and more independence, free play, and real-world responsibility. Notice the logic. He's not saying, ban all tech forever. He's saying, protect the developmental window. Delay the most intense exposure until kids are older and more resilient. Reduce the always-on pressure, and rebuild the real-world experiences that make kids stable. No smartphones before high school is about delaying round-the-clock internet access. A basic phone can still allow communication and safety, but it doesn't place a casino in the child's pocket. No social media before 16 is about early puberty being a sensitive window. That's when peer evaluation hits hardest and identity is most fragile. Delaying social media is like delaying a powerful drug until the brain is more developed. Phone-free schools is about attention and social life. School is not just academics. It's where kids learn boredom, friendship, conflict, humor, rejection, collaboration, and repair. If phones are present, the social world fractures. Kids retreat. They escape discomfort instead of learning to navigate it. More independence and free play is not nostalgia. It's therapy disguised as childhood. Independent time is where kids learn that fear can be faced, mistakes are survivable, and problems can be solved without an adult doing it for them. And this leads to one of Haidt's sharpest points. We've obsessed over rare dangers outside and ignored constant dangers inside the phone and opened the gates in the virtual world, backwards. Now, Haidt also addresses the question people ask when they're being careful. Is this only correlation? His argument is that the timing fits, the patterns fit, and the mechanisms fit. Sleep, attention, social comparison, and addiction are not vague theories. They are direct pathways that can make a developing mind more fragile. But even if someone is uncertain about every detail, the risk management logic still hits. Would you hand it to them early and say, "We'll see"? Or would you delay it until you had strong reason to believe it's safe? The default choice today is not neutral. The default is early exposure, and that choice was not made by kids. So Haidt's final message is basically a call to rebuild childhood on purpose. Not the childhood of the past, a childhood that fits the modern world while protecting what kids actually need to develop into calm, capable adults. That means accepting something hard. Kids need healthy discomfort, not trauma, not cruelty, healthy discomfort. They need to climb and fall and try again. They need to argue and repair. They need to feel awkward and learn. They need to be bored and invent. They need to walk places and make small decisions. They need to be trusted, because trust is the soil where competence grows. And the phone-based childhood quietly teaches the opposite lesson. I don't trust you in the real world, but I'll let you wander alone in the virtual world. Now let's make this practical, because Haidt's ideas only matter if they change behavior. Sam watched something that broke his heart with his cousin's daughter. She used to bring sketchbooks to family gatherings. She'd sit on the floor and draw for an hour, totally absorbed. Then one year she showed up and didn't draw at all. She sat in the corner with her phone, half present. Sam tried talking to her. She was polite but distracted, like her mind was being pulled elsewhere. Later, Sam's cousin admitted something that made Sam's chest tighten. She had started waking up at night to check messages. Not because anyone forced her, because she felt she had to. If she didn't respond fast enough, she feared she'd lose status, lose connection, miss something, become invisible. That's not just teen drama. That's a nervous system trapped in a social pressure cooker. So what can you do right now without turning your home into a war zone? Here are a few moves that preserve Haidt's core structure without pretending you can control the whole culture alone. First, treat sleep like a non-negotiable health issue. If a phone is in a bedroom at night, the brain is never fully off duty. Make nights phone-free, not as punishment, as protection. Second, rebuild real-world independence in small steps. A short walk, a trip to the store, a play session where adults stay in the background. Confidence grows through evidence, and evidence comes from doing. Third, push for phone-free spaces, especially school hours and family moments. A phone-free school day doesn't just improve focus. It restores a shared social reality where kids look up, talk, and practice being human. Fourth, delay the most intense platforms as long as you reasonably can. Puberty is a sensitive window. The goal is not to isolate kids. The goal is to let them build identity, resilience, and real friendships before they enter a world designed to monetize insecurity. Fifth, model what you want. Kids don't just listen, they mirror. If adults can't stop checking, kids learn constant attention fragmentation is normal. If adults can put the phone down and be present, kids learn presence is possible. That's the deeper message underneath this entire book. We can't outsource childhood to algorithms. We have to rebuild it on purpose. Because the anxious generation didn't appear out of nowhere. They were shaped by an environment, and environments can change. So here's the real question Haidt is forcing you to ask. What kind of childhood are we protecting? Are we protecting a childhood where kids learn real-world competence, independence, and calm, supervised outside, unleashed online, connected to everyone but alone in their room? That's the choice. And the good news is the solution is not complicated. It's just hard to do alone, which is why this can't only be a parenting conversation. It has to be a school conversation, a community conversation, a culture conversation, because once the norm shifts, the pressure shifts, and parenting gets easier. That's it for this video. I hope it was useful and gave you something real to think about. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.